Hi guys, my name is Ibtisam Ahmed and I'm the verbal content lead at Prudence Publications. So there is a lot of uncertainty about how the IBA test is going to go forward for 2020 admissions in light of this COVID-19 situation, and we basically wanted to make this video to discuss the different scenarios that we think can play out in the next 3 to 4 months. So, starting with the most optimistic scenario and the scenario that the IBA admissions department envisioned when they postponed the MBA tests from March to June but kept the BBA and BS Computer Science tests scheduled for 5th and 25th July as per their original schedule. They hope that by the end of June, we would have resolved this COVID-19 situation and we would have, to a great extent, curtailed the spread of this virus. But with each passing day, that situation seems very, very unlikely. And I think at this point in time, I think it is next to impossible that by the end of the June, we would have managed to curtail the spread of this virus to a great extent or completely. So I think it is very, very unlikely that by the time the IBA test is scheduled in July, things would have returned to normal. Then moving on, it is possible that by the time the IBA test is scheduled, things worsen and the situation worsen and we go into a much more stricter lockdown. We go into much more stricter social distancing rules, and it is possible that for the entire academic year for which was originally scheduled for to start in September, it is possible for it to be delayed and for it to be postponed, and it can be postponed from 3 to 6 months, and whenever the rescheduled recommencement whenever the whatever the date for recommencement is, for example if it is January, the test will then be scheduled for December. And it is also possible that in the situation that we have a much more serious circumstances, and in a situation where we have much more stricter lockdown and much more stricter social distancing rules, it is possible that the entire academic year, the next academic year, or at least the next fall semester is moved online and all academic activities are scheduled to recommence online. And if that happens, then obviously we would be in a situation where we would not be able to conduct the IBA test as it usually happens. So IBA would have to consider alternative modes of testing. It might have to conduct an online test, or it might have to go towards different criteria of admitting students. It might even go towards admitting students on the basis of their A level and intermediate grades and percentages instead of conducting the test. Although that seems unlikely because A level grades are not readily differentiable, and usually how IBA admits its students is by setting a top 10% cutoff, which is then which then decides who is admitted and who is not. So it is I don't think it is very likely that people will be admitted on the basis of their grades, but it is possible that the admission process becomes much more subjective than it is. Then moving on to the last scenario that I think is very possible and I think is very likely, is that uh, 1 month from now or 2 months from now we move into a situation globally where we have to coexist with this virus. So if you look at very, very optimistic projections of when we will have a vaccine, we will not have a vaccine for at least an year, and it can take up to 18 months or even longer than that. So it will take some time for us to have a vaccine. And if you look at the relative effectiveness of these lockdowns, we have been in a lockdown for now for almost 4 to 6 weeks, and almost half of the world's population is in a lockdown, or even more than that. But the relative effectiveness in curtailing the spread of this virus has not been so encouraging. So I don't think that, especially for countries like Pakistan, especially for third world countries like Pakistan, economic lockdowns are sustainable for an extended period of time. So we might have to move into a situation where we are not done with this COVID-19. We are not done with with the spread of this virus, but we might still have to open our economy up. We still might have to open things up and move towards herd immunity. And if that happens, then the IBA test be might take place as per its schedule, or it might be delayed by 2 to 4 weeks. But essentially, the academic semester, which was originally scheduled to start in September, will not be delayed by a lot of a lot of time, and it will certainly not be delayed by months. It might start latest by October. So these are the four scenarios that we think can play out in the next 3 to 4 months. But whatever happens, I recommend everyone who is preparing or intending to apply for to IBA to start preparing for the test, because whatever happens, the test is going to be much more competitive this time around, because the candidates have had a much extended window of time to prepare for it. So that's it from our side. Thank you.